January 24th, 2024. Well, I'm going to get into issues of how things are going respective. Kind of a joint problem here between both the pending border deal issues and also the Ukraine-Russia war. Those two kind of come together here in a interesting way, as we've discussed before. But first, I mention comment here, of course, that as expected, former President Trump has won the New Hampshire primary, apparently with a pretty good margin here, above 10% over Nikki Haley, who apparently will still stay in the race for some time. I would guess at least till she gets to her home state of South Carolina, I suppose. But at any rate, so with DeSantis out of the race, it's kind of closing in as I predicted in my video on that, the last one, that Trump will emerge as the winner of the primary contest. But getting back to this situation here, first of all, let's look at on the Ukraine front of it. The situation there getting kind of interesting because, again, the lack of financial support from the United States and even the European Union, although they're getting a little bit more on that front now. The fact that the parliament there has apparently refused to pass this mass mobilization effort to bring in another 500,000 troops. And the latest we heard is Zelensky saying, well, he doesn't have the money to pay and equip them anyhow. So apparently that's on hold for the moment. And remember, a lot of those troops were to replace the casualties that were on the ongoing conflict. So that's another thing. Another thing, which I'm not sure exactly how to report this at this point. Sources I follow seem to indicate this is true, but a search on the internet did not turn up the same thing as being confirmed by any official source. But I've heard that Zaluzhny, the chief of the Ukrainian army, has been removed and replaced by Budanov, who was the head of intelligence. But that may or may not be true. Supposedly, this is partly due to the failure of the various Ukrainian offensives. But I think we should take that with a grain of salt, as they say. But it seems like that may be in the works. And so, meanwhile, their cross river campaign has basically been a flop. I guess there's still a few Ukrainian Marines on the Russian occupied bank, but it looks like they've lost more equipment and men in this effort than they've really gained. So that kind of gives you an idea. Meanwhile, the Russian offensive actually is picking up steam, it would seem to me, across the board a little bit. Certainly in Avdiivka, they've scored a bit of a hit there, where apparently they found what apparently they use the term pipe, but I think they really mean tunnel. At any rate, the company of Russian troops, perhaps elite troops, numbering something like a company strength, 150 or so, had managed to go through this and pop up behind Ukrainian lines and led to the capture of a major area in southern Avdiivka, which was kind of a bit of a surprise how fast that happened. And apparently that kind of shocked the Ukrainian command a little bit, because apparently they were unaware of that particular possibility of accessing it that way. And overall, it looks like the Russians are doing better all across the line, taking this and that. It varies from day to day, and I think in the latest day, the Ukrainians did launch some counterattacks, which may have been a bit successful. And this could be connected to the new leadership, because it's possible that Zelensky is basically tired of throwing away Ukrainian lives, but the more aggressive people may be willing to do that. I mean, Budanov, as you know, is ahead of the basically their secret police type organization, which is a pretty brutal organization. So, but as anybody that dissents from the current regime would find out. So anyhow, that's kind of the way it is. Meanwhile, as I say, the aid is largely held up, although some debate that maybe Germany is going to go their own and throw something into it. So we'll have to see on that one. And meanwhile, our $61 billion would-be contribution is still held up in congressional negotiations at this time, as of this recording at least. Although perhaps later in the week here, maybe before this will, before some people will see this, that maybe something will emerge from the Senate negotiations. But if you like these videos, please give me a like. It helps with the algorithm. And of course, looking for new subscribers if you haven't already subscribed. And of course, if you're not a regular YouTube person, but just get it through some of my social media posts, but are a member of Rumble, you can of course subscribe on Rumble. I'll post there as well. So anyhow, so that kind of illustrates the kind of the current situation. I would like to say that as far as our own position, I was seeing some articles trying to blame the Republicans on this, but let's face it, the House, I think, would be prepared to pass the $61 billion of aid if they would adopt H.R. 2 in the same package, which would greatly restrict this flow of illegal immigrants coming in and basically change the law that Biden is abusing in order to allow this. Of course, we just had an interesting little Supreme Court ruling on that as well, where basically apparently the Supreme Court has given the permission for the Border Patrol to cut the razor wire that Texas has been putting up to slow the immigration flow. And of course, the occupation of that park is another issue. It's hard to know how that's going to play out. For the moment, as far as I can tell, Texas is not forbidden to put up barbed wire. It's just that the feds can cut it. So we might have a situation where one day the wire gets removed and the next day Texas puts it back again. I think we might have something like that going on for the moment. Although this is a temporary ruling, but the Justice Barrett ruling that way was a big disappointment, I'd have to say. Of course, Roberts ruled that way as well, but we did have 4 solid conservatives apparently ruling the other way, which was kind of encouraging. I mean, my opinion is from a legal technical point of view, probably that is the correct ruling, but but basically we have a president that's completely abusing his office and not doing his duty correctly, and it is kind of an emergency situation. So I don't. We'll just have to see what's going on, with that. But that's where we are at the moment. So that becomes even more important to hold firm on this negotiation. And so far, the Speaker of the House, whose job is always in jeopardy with that, narrow margin to kick him out, with every Democrat voting that way, and a few Republicans can sabotage him, just like happened to McCarthy. He said that he wants H.R. 2 or its equivalent, or he's not going to support this aid bill. Of course, there's other good things in the aid bill, I think, as far as, supporting Taiwan is probably good, and of course Israel. But the idea of appropriating billions of dollars just to facilitate illegal immigration seems to me to be really a non-starter. And like I said, the rumors are that the bill that's being discussed in the Senate would allow 5,000 migrants coming in per day before anything would set in to stop them. Now, we don't know for sure, and it's like anything else. I think these are fragmentary rumors that may be in flux. There is something about a parole authority that the Republicans want to take away, and the details are kind of unclear till we really get text. I've just yesterday, called my senators up again on this to encourage them not to pass this thing, and certainly not to pass it fast like some people want in order to not see what's in it. So anyway, that's kind of the situation on that. The way I look at it is that I'm not, again, my position is that I don't want to continue the Ukraine war, and therefore I'm really against throwing $61 billion into that at this point. I would be willing to support a much lower number if it was coupled with a demand that the Ukrainians change their position and open unconditional negotiations with the Russians to see if we can hammer out something. One of the latest interesting issues is that Zelensky has now proposed that there are certain areas of Russia that's internationally recognized should become Ukrainian territory. And something about dual citizenship being offered to Russians in that area. That's interesting. I don't know how that'll go. I do think that maybe this is kind of a bargaining chip effort. That is to say, he'll drop his demands for Russian territory if Russia drops their demands for Ukrainian territory or something like that. We'll see what comes from that. It sounds a little bit absurd. And of course, we'll have to see. As I said, there was a big, the Ukraine definitely had a big rah-rah with shooting down that A-50 aircraft. But Russia can blame themselves by flying it within range of a Patriot system of Ukrainian lines. But I don't think that gave them a lot more advantage in keeping it just shy of that. But I don't know whether that's a good question, whether that was just a goof up on the part of the pilot or. Well, it was very unlikely the Patriot would have been in range to shoot it at any place it flew, but that's the way. The Ukrainians do take some provocative chances at times with their systems, and they got by with that one. But anyhow, so like I said, with the potential turmoil in the High Command, with the offensives failing, with their ammunition supplies running low, it looks to me like it would be smart for Ukraine to start negotiating seriously for an end to the conflict. I don't believe, again, that there's any real chance that Russia will actually conquer all of Ukraine. I don't see that as even in the cards. I mean, even though the Russian offensive is gaining some momentum compared to the past, it's still relatively slow. And even if they were to take over significant areas, they would be faced with ongoing guerrilla warfare, particularly if they got into the hardcore Ukrainian ethnic areas. I think that's so. But anyhow, and we'll have to see kind of how this all develops. But I think that for the moment, I think that the position we have is that quite clear that if you want to get the money, Biden, deal with the border and give us what we want on the border. I think it's a reasonably a fair political trade where both sides do something we don't really like, but it's what you have to do to make a deal. At any rate, so I'll wrap this up for now. And of course, I said I'll post this on Rumble as well as on YouTube, and the addresses of my social media accounts are in the description below. Until next time.